Hello, I am Storm Meyer, and this is my case study for module number 12 in EDU 852. So, to start off, section 1 is the case summary and facts of the event. So, our background, what we're looking at is a community called Lightville. And the Lightville Community School District is a rural community with 2 townships, and it is about 10 miles from a major city in an adjoining county. On their educational facility site, they have a 65-acre area where there is still room to continue building. The elementary building's 22 years old, secondary building's 11 years old, and they have currently 1,200 students in K-12 and a 2% growth per year with low land costs. So many people are moving in. The demographics are taking a shift, and they are running out of room in the current buildings they have and are adventuring what to do next. As we're looking, stakeholders involved. There are old families who lived in the Lightville district. There's new families moving into the area for the low land costs and other opportunities. And you have district staff and administration. With Superintendent Joe Rawlings, new principal that has hired Susan Potter, Board of Education, and the committee that will take place. So what has happened? The district must build and expand somehow. And Superintendent Rawlings reviewed 3 alternative plans and supported Plan 3 as recommended by the architectural firm to build a new 6 to 8 grade building rather than adding on to one of the previous buildings. The Board of Education voted 4-1 for a referendum to build the new school, and it was only supported by 53% of voters. New building will accommodate 450 students and be on the same campus, and Rawlings hired Principal Susan Potter for 12 months ahead of time to begin developing this new program, this new school, and things that are necessary, hiring staff and such. So the parties really involved in the case study and what we'll be looking at, they appointed an advisory committee to begin writing the vision statement and values, and that consisted of 4 teachers, 4 parents, and Principal Potter. On guidelines or norms of this committee, Principal Potter did try to establish rules and norms, primarily that it would be democratic decision-making by vote, consensus would be preferred, and the purpose to establish a vision statement, collective values and beliefs, and stakeholders would have input and feedback opportunities as they went through this process. So what did the parties involved have to say? Principal Potter did not want to be the chair. She wants democratic stakeholder input and wants the community to create values and vision. The other primary person within the case study was Helen Burke, a teacher who became the committee chair. And Helen did seem to represent most of the committee members' thoughts. They wanted the principal to create a vision, values, etc., and then give to committee whatever she had created to, for approval, to rubber stamp it. And they do support the principal in decision making and agrees to needs, but not necessarily the decision making themselves. Helen Burke does create some ethical dilemmas as we go into this. She advocated for the building and heavily campaigned for it. Some other pieces that we'll look at. But those are the 2 primary parties involved throughout the committee. Another teacher is mentioned, but he does not provide much, and most other members are relatively quiet throughout this time. So how did they promote the success of each student adult? I would say not very well. Overall, Principal Potter seems to be the only one to really want to promote success. And Principal Potter was quoted saying, "The new middle school is not mine. It is ours. Therefore, we all have a duty to shape its future." And she does this through asking for input from all members, trying to find that consensus, wanting to guide the vision based on community values. And she also recognized that she was new and may not make the best decisions, and needed the other people. So she did solicit for community input. So what didn't happen? What was missing within this case? Particularly, the superintendent and board of education only sought one firm for building options. That's not very common. Usually, there's going to be a bid and a battle for these pieces. I don't know why they would only consult one firm for options. The super did not discuss those options or seek after reports for anything else given by the firm or anyone else, and they did not consult the small margin of voting difference. Again, it was a 53 to 47% vote, and there was no discussions, no survey, anything that followed to see purpose for that 47%. Principal Potter did not ask for more out of the committee members or give a direct lead into the democratic norms, although that may not be very democratic to direct democracy within that form. She didn't move forward to make sure that it occurred either. And also, silent members were not discussing opinions. They were not asked to discuss their opinions. Nothing was given. Helen Burke really kind of shoved her way through. And then they moved to a vote without any open communication. So our guidelines and norms fell apart pretty quickly. So when we're looking at who has skills to lead, this was a little tough. I think that everybody in the situation is lacking, but Principal Potter did demonstrate a capacity of knowledge and skill to lead, and was described by board members as a visionary leader, one of those board members being Helen Burke's brother. And she does display characteristics of a steward leadership style, valuing rules and process cooperation, trying to set those up, but she didn't uphold those or implement them. She also shows stewardness by looking for opportunities for community input for visions and values. Helen Burke demonstrated goal-driven success in an active campaign for the new school building, and that may be a good piece. She's driven and optimistic there, but she displays some negative characteristics of a pragmatist leadership, being overly competitive, overly outspoken, kind of overbearing. And, she desired that the committee be more of an advisory. So, case summary and facts. What was incorporated in their plan? Data use. I would say it's absence. They did not look for more firms to follow up. There's no surveys after the referendum vote or as to what people wanted to do. No surveying opinions or committee members were silent on that matter. They were pushed into the vote. And they had no consideration or consultation from other schools, districts, buildings with similar situations or new builds. There was just no data, really overall besides the one firm report. Technology incorporation is pretty absent. There's no clear explanations of how they were organizing, displaying, saving, or using materials and resources. And the district did communicate with the firm for the building needs, and it would be assumed that that firm would have the appropriate experience with technology. But besides that, there's no technological innovation, no use, no explanation as to that whatsoever. On equity, I would say this is kind of present and absent for equity. Searching for the best solution to provide community education of students through this expansion was definitely an equity benefit, trying to give the best opportunities to all as they are needed. And they did interview many candidates for the principal position. And there is a variety of people on the school committee, being the administrative members, Miss Principal Potter, as well as 4 parents and 4 school teachers. Beyond that, we're not really sure, who they are, if they're new or if they've been there for a while, if there's a mix. 2 of the board members had been new, and maybe it would have been good to have one of them and one older board member on the committee. So there's just not a lot There is some equity, but not a lot. And Principal Potter does ask for input from them, but does not receive much. As for diversity, it's pretty unclear on that as well. We don't have any demographics or pieces to state the needs of that. So incorporating the plan, digital citizenship is also unclear. It's just totally unclear from this case study what aspects of digital leadership were taken. We don't know if technology use was put into this or what the modeling was for others. It could have been used to conduct communication and to go through those pieces using digital applications for the best use. And for community, community was present, also absent. In some ways, Potter pushes for a large amount of community input, desiring the community to gauge community values and vision for the school. But Helen Burke and other committee members, end up acting as a review committee rather than the development committee based on votes. And there's other pieces as well that, the 47% who voted against the new building were not surveyed. There's no engagement. Never mention of any student input. So there's quite a bit of contrast and stakeholder involvement. And so how did they implement the plan? The advisory committee was created by Superintendent, Board of Education, and Principal Potter. It was meant to run democratically on a consensus, hopes, but they did not move past the norm setting in the case study. Helen Burke and others did not want to be part of the creation of values and vision. They wanted to rubber stamp it. They were mostly silent. Burke really overran her opinion, and 7 voted for Burke's direction, showing some democracy, but it was not the democracy they wanted because they put everything onto Principal Potter. So evaluation of the plan, no evaluations really happened yet. Principal Potter is left, as the committee leaves, thinking about what she has to do for the next thing and what to build out of this vision statement. She could have had direct activity, draw out discussion, involvement in some of those, but it became an argument and it didn't continue. So section 2 is legal and ethical issues. When we go to look at this, is there any legal, ethical issues? No legal issues seem present, and I consulted my administration on that, and there's no, pressing legal issues that a building principal would have to partake within this. We are taking a new build at Bennington, and there was nothing my administrator knew of as per legal issues to bring up in this matter when we're building on our own campus, besides regulatory building. So, as for ethical issues, there is a number of them. So Mrs. Potter does take good ethical stance to try to involve several people, administration, committee members, and the community. But Helen Burke is a huge ethical issue. Her brother serves on the Board of Education, and both campaigned for this new building heavily and successfully, as is seen. And was directed multiple times for group involvement and resisted throughout. She did not seek opinions from others, but simply forced hers through. As for ethical norms, it was established they wanted to operate democratically, and this kind of backfired because Mrs. Potter is democratically voted to do everything herself. Committee members leave Mrs. Potter with that vote to do everything, and it just removes the guidelines and norms that were set up to begin with. It kind of eliminates the value of the committee. And a quote from Leonard there in 2019 was, "Values and ethics define what the company perceives as important regarding the behavior of everyone. Committees find themselves in public relation nightmares when ethical lines are crossed." And I think Principal Potter really finds herself in this nightmare as we're looking. So Section 3 asks for a synthesis, and this is kind of my synthesis statement over what has occurred. The advisory committee for the new Lightville Middle School has come to conflict over leadership styles, and membership cooperation in the creation of a vision statement and values documents which will guide the future planning, progress, and success of staff and students. So section 4 was to evaluate the missing facts, and it broke it into a couple of pieces. The first would be people, the board members and Superintendent Rawlings. Information's incomplete pertaining to the amount of input that they had, or on direction for the buildings to form vision and value statements. It's not known if there's a district statement, and we're left kind of asking, have the Board of Education and Super been involved with previous work in the district buildings, or has this been the case, previously? There's not a survey of stakeholders, past the vote. No information is provided or seen as the values and vision of the stakeholders, and we're looking at community members, teachers, students, etc., for the new school. We don't know if this process is carried out in some similar way or in the other two buildings or not. And then new to the community members. There's many people, like those moving in, with attractions of the new building, low land cost, change of social and political dynamic. It's not known the drastic effect this had on voting for the plan, support the new school, or how the Board of Education was altered in values, vision for community. We do know there's 2 new members on the board, but we don't know, if they came from the city or the values were different, or what the case was with this. The second thing would be place. The Lightville School District was said to be 10 miles outside a major city in an adjoining county. What's not known is the amount of out-of-district applicants that are in the school district. It is known that 60% of residents live on farms in the area, but it's not made apparent if the remaining 40% is all in Lightville or from other surrounding areas, or how many have moved into those farms or moved into the Lightville town itself. We just don't know about the place and the people there a lot. We also don't know the readiness that students are needed moving from middle school to high school buildings or into the middle school, or what the expectation is for post-secondary success from the district. We don't have any of these ideas for this place. What is occurring in the community? If there's job trainings or opportunities or those types of things. And knowing the number of people invested from various areas would help to guide the needs and values of the community, create an appropriate vision statement. And the last section of missing things would be the programs. We don't know what other committees are available, or what they've been responsible for creating, or if this process was done at all, or what did this process look like in previous buildings that were built for the elementary and the secondary school. We don't know if there's any school support programs in place in the community. We don't know if there's definite need for families, poverty, academic supports, athletic programs, or after-school supports, activities, things like that. Knowing the desires of the community would be a great help, but we don't know those things. And then lastly, we don't know if there's a district-wide policy for how these things occur, what's been going on. I assume there's no policy, or the policy is that it's created with a committee within the building, as was done in this situation. But we don't see anything in particular from Board of Education or the superintendent as towards district policy. And with that, we're going to stop.